Welcome to the broadcast. Many thanks for joining us. Today is the 29th day of April 2018. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the broadcast this morning. Let's begin with the splash on the Sunday Standard, the big crack. This is something we'll get into detail a bit more, but this is about talk of referendum. Let me start with you, Dismas. Talk of referendum, echoes from the past, ghosts from Bomas, something that is pundits say Uhuru Kenyatta is seemingly backing Raila's proposal and Ruto is opposing it. Is this causing the jitters?
Well, the tragedy we have in Kenya is that we like painting people in negative colors, so that even when they speak and they make sense, the default setting is always to say no. Right now, depending on where you are seated, there are a number of Kenyans who are saying no to referendum, and others are saying yes to a referendum. Never mind that the question has not been framed. So when you ask the people who are saying no to referendum, what are you saying no to? They have no answer.
But we already know there is a push for the parliamentary system of government.
Well, there's no push. I mean, so far it's people making their views public. Like, for instance, a number of people within the NASA framework have indicated that maybe we need to go back to a parliamentary system. But the question has not been framed. And again, if you're going back to a parliamentary system, there are so many permutations and combinations of a parliamentary system.
Right.
So the question has actually not been framed. But if you do not like Raila Odinga, even when it makes sense, automatically you'll jump and say no. If you don't like Ruto, and equally if you don't like President Kenyatta, whatever they say, people don't take time to sit down with those ideas and look at them from a logical manner, break it down. There are some philosophers who say that you need to go to first principles thinking, that if Raila Odinga is suggesting that we go to a parliamentary system, where is he coming from? If the Deputy President Ruto is unhappy with a parliamentary system, where is he coming from? And it's unfortunate that we are held hostage to personalities. If you come from a certain side of Jubilee right now, as the Sunday Standard has confirmed, whatever the Deputy President says is the gospel truth. If you come from the other side, Uhuru Kenyatta said something, you'll run with him. And it's so unfortunate that as a nation, we are held hostage by these leaders. But at this stage, one has to commend the president. On his way from the funeral service of Matiba, he sent a warning shot to his governors, because Governor Mike Sonko, Waititu, and Wairia have already started campaigning for 2022 instead of focusing on the key issues at hand.
Right.
And I think we need to see the Deputy President Ruto doing the same, sending a warning shot to his soldiers, and Raila Odinga to do the same. Because at this stage, really, what people are interested in is how we're going to manage floods which are killing our nation, not to be focused on 2022.
But is it possible to ignore that change the constitution movement that is beginning to gain some momentum?
It's possible to ignore if our leadership can realize that you can discuss 2022 and deliver on the Big Four agenda. But unfortunately, our politicians, most of them, up to 99%, are mechanical. When they start discussing succession politics or 2022, they forget about the Big Four agenda. It's as if they cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think the political leaders in Kenya need to engage in structured conversations, which goes back to what Salem Dawad indicated a few days ago, that let's have a structured conversation on what we need to achieve as a nation.
All right.
And you know, Winston Churchill said at some stage that you cannot trust politicians on anything. At some stage, maybe the people in Kenya may need to take this matter in their own hands and tell the politicians that they're holding the entire nation at ransom. We are being held at hostage, and this is unacceptable.
Mark, against the backdrop of that handshake, President Uhuru Kenyatta has said that I will, quote unquote, continue working with my brother Raila. Ruto has openly opposed that proposal by Raila Odinga, seemingly, causing jitters in in some sections of Jubilee. What is your take on this situation?
The truth of the matter is that the country, not just Jubilee, is suddenly finding itself walking a tightrope, and the balancing act of walking a tightrope is what is becoming difficult. The truth of the matter is this, that every Kenyan recognizes that the tensions and the temperatures in this country in 2007, in 2013 and 2017 is not healthy at all. It affects our GDP, it affects our psyche. If you count the number of weeks Kenyans were not at work in both 2013 and 2017, you realize that there's something that is ailing us, there's something that is pinching us, and none of us is willing to have that conversation. Now, the problem with the conversation is that when you bring it up as far as Deputy President William Ruto is sitting, is he looks at 2022 and he wonders, are you trying to curtail his presidency before it has even begun? And that, of course, puts him in a situation where he needs to defend status quo.
Right.
But at the same time, President Kenyatta is the one wearing the shoe, and he knows where it pinches. And if there's a place where the presidential shoe pinches in this country, it must be Raila Odinga. If you're going to run this country, you need to somehow always factor in Raila Odinga. In fact, even in 2022, whether he's running or not, we are all forced to factor Raila Odinga a possibility of a run. And therefore, I think what the president is trying to do is trying to set ground for him to be able to deliver on his Big Four agenda. He needs that kind of support from Raila to be able to deliver. So the president is working a tightrope again in trying to balance the interests of his party, but also putting forward the interests of the nation and factoring in, whether you like it or not, one person called Raila Odinga. He is one of, he's the devil in the detail. He is both, he's everything. His enigma in Kenyan politics cannot be ignored.
All right. Hesbon, Raila Odinga said that he is not looking, yesterday speaking in Kajiado, in what seemed like a response to Ruto, saying that he's not looking for a job, he's not looking to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2022, that he's just looking out for the welfare of Kenyans.
Ben, I think I agree with Raila Odinga to a large extent. I don't think there is any job other than the presidency that Raila would be looking for, and the president of the republic right now is Uhuru Kenyatta. So to that extent, I would say that there is nothing he's looking for. And in terms of the country, you'd actually appreciate that both Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta are looking beyond 2022. They're not looking at the stability of the country just now, because that one is already achieved. The politics of this country has revolved around the two of them for some time now. And I want to believe that given what is going on right now, they're looking at a situation where even post, the active life in politics, we'll have a stable country. And the conversations that people are having, people need to understand that this is not something that can be achieved by just having individuals. So when they're looking at the Constitution, I think they're looking at it from, a very public interest focused angle where the Constitution can enshrine a very stable country that is all inclusive.
All right.
Yeah, so it is, I don't think it's, for the two of them, I don't think it's so much about William Ruto 2022 as it is about having stability post-2022, irrespective of whoever wins the presidency.
All right. Kipchumba?
The major problem we find ourselves as a country is we have personified problems in this country, and we have personified ideological positions.
All right.
Just a few months ago, we were talking about the irreducible minimums, electoral justice and all this. How the same has metamorphosized into a constitutional amendment for the position of Prime Minister is what leaves anybody wondering, are we serious in our quest? Are our political elites serious whenever they talk of any problem? Look at where we are now. We are talking about a referendum. In the next few months, we have a constitutional duty as a country, the delimitation of boundaries. It is a whole event which needs financial support and huge investment in terms of finance. We have the national census. It is a whole activity. When you factor in the referendum, where do we get the time to even do the Big Four agenda? Where do we get the money? Where do we get the mental ability to visualize the Big Four? So I think as a country, we need to have a true and honest discussion. We must not found most of our political solutions in merely superfluous ways. They must be organic in nature, whereby they resonate with the normal mwananchi.
Right.
Which is the position, or where is the position of the normal mwananchi in this referendum change? It is about positions. We are talking about the same politicians. Nothing really trickles down to the mwananchi.
All right. All right, on page 2 of the Sunday Standard still, there's the team trying to look forward to the State of the Nation address that will be on Wednesday, this week. High cost of living, lecturer strike, insecurity, lack of jobs in the economy among burning matters afflicting the country. And this must among those issues that Kenyans want addressed by the president in his State of the Nation address is the issue of the handshake. The state of it, I mean, that has been a bit going cold. The trail has been cold for some time now.
Well, you know, there's a contradiction there because President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga indicated that this handshake was a private initiative between two powerful politicians. And then, so one wonders, then why would it be a State of the Nation address agenda? Because this is a private initiative between two individuals.
It's what Kenyans would want addressed, so now, what Kenyans feel.
Then we go back to what people have been saying all along, that such kind of a handshake is so important to be left to two personalities, to two individuals, that it must be structured dialogue. You recall there was a handshake a few days ago in the Korea where you had the dictator from North Korea and the president of South Korea meeting and having a handshake. I doubt whether, in as much as that handshake is so important between two individuals, I doubt whether those two presidents woke up one day and decided, let's go by the demilitarized zone and have a handshake. There must have been a structured dialogue, structured engagement. And for this handshake to address the issues raised by Kenyans, especially the cost of living and unemployment, then it must be structured. Everybody must come on board. We must run away from this high appetite of placing too much faith in personalities rather than institutions. If we had very solid institutions, then we wouldn't be complaining of a lack of jobs and expecting a handshake to come and sort it out. If we had very powerful institutions, those institutions would be addressing the cost of living without specific reference to Raila Odinga or President Kenyatta. And it's important for us as a nation. Maybe this is the very reason why we need that referendum, so that we come up with very solid institutions. Right now we have institutions, constitutional commissions, in theory, which have been immunized from these Machiavelli politics. But in real terms, these people just play around the politicians. You remember a few months ago, when Raila Odinga said the current IBC commissioners must go home. Despite the fact that they've got security of tenure, those folks found themselves at home. A few weeks ago, we understand a cabinet secretary sat with the commissioners and told them, you need to resign. Never mind, they've not written their resignation letters, but they've still gone home. So maybe we need a referendum so that we are able to immunize our institutions from these Machiavelli politicians. Because for so long we've said, we are going to let the integrity and the goodwill of our politicians lead us. But that one is failing.
What more immunization would there be than the 2010 Constitution?
The immunization we need is for people to pay. If you commit a sin, if you're a Catholic, you go to the church on a Saturday evening and you repent. But in Kenya, if you steal from the public, you are fated, you become a hero. See what happened in Kakamega a few days ago. There are floods all over Kenya, but those governors are there competing to display wealth. We are told the Auditor General every single year gives out a list of mischievous activities within national government and county governments. People stealing left, right, and center. It tables the evidence before the National Assembly, before the Senate, and it's very clear. Even for a student who has basic understanding of auditing or accounting, they know that resources have been stolen. But what happens? When you have a devolution conference in Kakamega, they land there in choppers. They are competing with who has the biggest car, who has the highest number of handlers, and instead of sorting out those floods which are affecting people, they're competing on delivering sexual jokes.
All right. Let's stay on topic. Mark, let me come to you. There has been pressure from both the church and both sides of the political divide on Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta to open up on what was contained in that document. They have remained mum. Do we expect the president to, open the lead on that on Wednesday?
Allow me to address what ails Kenya first, then I'll be able to answer that question. Kenya does not need political engineering, neither does it need the changing and setting up of more institutions. We've got very many commissions in this country whose sole job apparently is to take foreign trips and pick allowances. Kaparo is one commission. We've got the IEBC, which we are handing out. We've got very many so-called institutions. But the problem is this. It does not matter how nice a glass I have. If I pour in muddy water, water, the water will be muddy. And this is the problem. Kenya has very fine institutions. The problem is that Kenya does not have very fine people, not politicians, not engineers, not doctors, not people on the street. We as a Kenyan people need to look ourselves in the mirror and realize we are the problem. Every one of us listening to me. Why? Because the policeman does not bribe himself. The exams were not stolen by themselves. Sponsors are not sponsoring themselves. People who cheat on their spouses are not cheating on themselves. It is a societal issue. We are rotten as a society. And therefore, the document that Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta signed is a social engineering agreement. What you need from it is not more institutions. You do not need more secretariats. You actually need more actions. You need leaders who are able, to call each other out on corruption, because that's how you instill discipline. You need leaders who can sit down and say, I am not going to put together another Pentagon in 2022 so that I can do tribal mathematics. You need leaders who will say, I want these positions created, but I am not standing for election in 2022. Do not give me any of these positions. That is how you re-engineer a society. So I would be disappointed personally if Uhuru and Raila came up with another institution and filled it with the same rotten people that we are. The reality is that it is Uhuru and Raila to begin to do the things they promised. And it's very simple things. Let them go hold a rally together in Nyeri, hold another one in Makueni, hold another one, and tell Kenyans to be united. What we need is a social engineering agreement, not a political agreement, and neither the creation of institutions. Because I'm telling you, you can create an institution called the Virgin Mary Jesus Combined Institution, independent, all of those things, but you fill it with rotten people, it will not come out with white smoke.
All right, so no need for new wineskins, other side of the paradox.
We do need new wineskins. That's exactly what I'm saying. We need people to change, because wineskins are people. We need the Kenyan people to change how they think. Right. Yesterday, in fact, I was talking to a young lady who had to separate from her boyfriend because her boyfriend was from another tribe. In 2018, this is the rot that is in our country. That's what we need to deal with. And the only way to deal with it, including corruption, is not to create more laws. It does not matter whether you write you will jail someone for 1 million years when he knows he'll never be jailed. We need to change the social contract. Right. We need to question in churches the deacon that is seated there that was in the newspaper today for being corrupt and is bringing you offering, and he was not chased away. That is the social contract we need to change.
Fair enough. Hesbon, do you think this issue of the handshake is this complicated?
Well, I think the reason why it's complicated is because every time we are facing a transition of an election, people tend to look at any move made by big politicians as a move, geared towards, succeeding in the transition. And I mean, simply put, the way Mark is saying it, we just need some social engineering. We need a leadership that will remove us from the insecurities within our tribal cocoons to some sort of security within our national ethos, a leadership that will build more of cultural nationalism and less of ethnic nationalism. And I don't think that leadership is one that will realize through the law. I mean, the law is already sacrosanct. We just need a leadership that will ensure that the law serves everyone irrespective of whether you're in power or not. We need a leadership that will ensure that the corrupt individuals, irrespective of whether they come from Migori, Kirinyaga, Makueni, or the coastal region, felt the full force of the law. A leadership that probably would help Kenyans understand that it doesn't matter who is at the top, that the leadership of the country will serve my interest. And therefore, I don't have to seek security in tribal blockings. I don't have to vote with my tribe. I don't have to vote against any other tribe. And I think to a large extent, this is what I see in the handshake. That if President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga mean well for this country, that is the direction that they need to take. They need to focus on social development, how to help people understand that you can move forward irrespective of whether your person won an election or not, if you address issues, that the politician or the leadership does not solve.
Right.
And I also agree with Dismas that if we talk about these things, we will get to spark some consciousness in the public. And the public will be interested in why the political class is so much interested in changing the law, in talking about referendum. And that is the problem that Kenyans have never sorted, how to engage with the political class constructively, and not just through voting.
All right, Kipchumba, what do you expect?
From the State of the Nation address, I will expect the president to tell us what are we doing to spur our economy again. I understand that we are at 4.9%. We need to get back to around 8 for the purpose of getting the jobs. We have a greater population of this country being unemployed. And this is that time when we need to address real issues. We have been talking about shortage of water. In a fortnight ago, we have had problems of flooding. What are we doing as a country to tap into all this? What are we doing to deal with the issues of inclusivity? As my panelist, Owila, is talking about, we need to make sure that a Turkana in this country feels more of a Kenyan the same way a Somali in Nairobi or in Isli will feel. So I think that is what we need to see. The other point is we need to crystallize the Big Four agenda. Let us move it now from a speech item to an action item. We have seen a lot being done in that direction, but we need more in terms of budgetary allocation to address the issue of the politics around that. It is often said that the meeting, an agreement between the leopard and a lion will have the same fate for the antelope. I think we are not past there.
All right.
Because the main issue is this. We might have 1 million of laws, but it should not be confused that duplicity or multiplicity of laws does not result in rule of law. Those are two different things. We can amend the Constitution today, tomorrow, and in the future. But do we have constitutionalism? We'll end up being the best example of constitutions without constitutionalism.
All right.
That's a point. It seems that all of us have not gone through the Constitution, because when you look at public servants in Kenya, it seems the case that there's a competition for who gets A grades in impunity, mediocrity, and corruption. How do you explain that nobody, from the time we got a new constitution, nobody has ever been jailed because of stealing public resources? Does it mean that from the time we got our constitution 2010, nobody has ever stolen a coin? Does it mean that what the Auditor General says year in, year out of people stealing public resources is writing fiction or competition? And maybe this handshake could have made sense if it can catalyze. We see what is happening in Brazil, where a president is now serving 24 years. In South Korea, where a president is serving 12 years. In South Africa, where Zuma is facing investigations. Now, if you want to make progress, this thing about social engineering and stuff like that, Kenyans are very clever. They love a way of re-engineering themselves after that social engineering. Let's get 3 cabinet secretaries, 4 principal secretaries, and 4 governors behind bars, the way it happened in Nigeria. Then at that stage, people will begin to respect the Constitution. A few days ago, a policeman was interdicted because of he failed to take action. Now, how come the state goes for a poor policeman who has failed to take action, but for guys where there is evidence of public looting, alteration of public contracts, we celebrate them and we fet them, we give them head of state commendation.
Right.
When they come for Sunday service, we give them the middle seats, and we even say that the good Lord works in miraculous ways. Our son here is now a big man in Nairobi, he's come with a chopper. This will only come to an end if the new DPP, if the new AG ensure that all these top public servants and their accomplices from the private sector who still spend time behind bars. Like, for instance, a good example, in other parts of the world, if you compare par to par, a kilometer would take about 50 million to construct in Ethiopia. Then in Kenya, now it's about 120 million. Where does this difference go to?
What does not? Yeah, right. Thanks. A lot of recommendations on what needs to be done. Thank you, gentlemen. So we leave it for the newspapers headlines this morning. When we come back after this commercial break, we'll talk about that proposal by Raila Odinga for a 3-tier government. System of government. Raila Odinga saying that the counties as are currently constituted, the 47 of them are not economically viable. Join us next for more details on that.